Chairwoman Salazar, Ranking Member Castro, thank you so much for holding this hearing and for inviting me. The State Department's Bureau of INL manages the largest U.S. aid account for security forces in Latin America and the Caribbean, though it pays for other things too. Worldwide, it's about $1.5 billion. In our hemisphere, it's at least $600 million. Now, for years, INL was jokingly known as the Drugs and Thugs Bureau. Its success was measured in hectares eradicated and kilos seized and kingpins arrested. That narrow focus reflects its 1980s era statute, and it hasn't really worked. You don't have to take my word for it. Just look at overdose deaths, look at street prices. Meanwhile, our understanding of organized crime and how to combat it has evolved. Yes, drugs are still a top revenue stream for criminal groups, but crime groups also make billions from gold mining, migrant smuggling, extortion, and more, sometimes with even bigger profits than they're getting from drugs. The drug market itself has shifted towards synthetics like fentanyl and meth, which don't involve most of Latin America outside Mexico. And mass migration has made the question urgent. How can we help people feel safe enough to stay in their own communities? This reframes success. It's no longer just kilos and hectares. It's whether people feel secure. It's whether justice works. It's whether officials fear punishment for corruption. To its credit, INL has shifted. It no longer tries to fight crime the way you'd fight a guerrilla insurgency. While guerrillas fight governments, organized crime infiltrates them and hollows them out by bribing, threatening, co-opting, and corrupting. That makes it a much harder, much more complex fight. Now, in response, INL has begun putting more emphasis on the L, rule of law, and civilian law enforcement, rather than just the N. Funding has increasingly gone to prosecutors, judicial institutions, police academies, oversight bodies, and independent experts and investigators. A whole comprehensive security sector, a table with many legs, and not just the people wearing uniforms. There's a growing realization that real progress is going to take time, and it depends on breaking collusion between government and crime. That's why efforts like the Commission Against Impunity in Guatemala, the CICIG, mattered so much. Brave people made historic anti-corruption gains, and INL was there to support them. Ironically, de-narcotizing INL's mission may be the best way to reduce drug supplies in the long term. But that shift also means we need to rethink some obsolete frameworks like the annual drug certification process. As the 2020 Western Hemisphere Drug Policy Commission noted, it's a relic. It hasn't been used to seriously cut aid since the 1990s, and even then, a Republican majority Congress and a Democratic White House scrambled in the late 90s to restore it when security began deteriorating in Colombia. So yes, INL needs reform. WOLA supports a serious rethink to bring the Bureau and its statutes into the mid-21st century. What we don't support is a rushed 90-day review full of abrupt freezes and cuts with no input from partners around the world, many of whom have been risking their lives to fight corruption and crime and really depend on their relationship with us. The little we've seen of the proposed cuts so far is worrying. Aid to police and military agencies looks mostly untouched, but support to civil society, justice institutions, UN programs, that looks like it's cut by about half. That risks turning INL back into what it once was, a little drugs and thugs bureau. And we know where that leads. Brief dips in violence or drug supplies, followed by resurgence. It's just a constant game of whack-a-mole. Organized crime figures get taken down, but organized crime remains strong. Corrupt officials keep operating with impunity. People keep fleeing their homes, often coming here. I'm not asking to preserve the status quo. Frankly, I can't defend much of it because I can't see it. Public reporting on INL aid has become vague, inconsistent, and far less quantitative. It's hard to track where the money goes and what it achieves, and reporting requirements, if we do reauthorize INL, have to improve. That right now, oversight is difficult, and it makes the whole program hard to defend when an administration comes to power questioning its entire value. This committee can help. First, it can urge INL to keep expanding its focus on organized crime, corruption, and citizen security, not just counter-narcotics. Second, it can press for much better transparency. Third, it can insist that any reform effort be thoughtful, inclusive, and deliberate, not a 90-day rollback. There's lots of space for bipartisan agreement here, I think. I look forward to exploring that here and any other time that you'd like in the future. Thank you again for organizing this discussion.